Alright, so let's take this concept of lighting effects via layer styles a little bit further by not just applying it to custom brushes, but also to other various shapes to generate an overall interesting layout. Not only that, we're going to have the light interact with our subject in this photo a little bit more accurately, as if the light is actually reflecting in our face and everything like that. So, let's begin by applying a shape to our image. And if you remember this download from the earlier lessons, it's this file right here with all these various kinds of swirlies on it. And the one I'm going to use in this image is this top one right here. And we're just going to zoom in there. I'm going to grab my lasso tool. Now, I'm going to do something a little bit different than I did last time. We're going to actually go ahead and generate the selection inside this file and then drag it into our working file. So I'm going to go into the Channels palette. And right here on the gray channel, I'm just going to create a duplicate of it and simply press Command or Control I to inverse that value. Then I'll just load this channel as a selection. I'm going to hold down my Command or Control key, click directly on it. And you can see it loads not just the top shape, but all the shapes as a selection. So what I need to do is deselect all these other ones. So zoom out here. Again, with that lasso tool, I'm going to hold down the Option key, and you'll see it turns into a little minus symbol there. And I'm just going to draw a selection around all the other shapes in this file. And you can see it deselects it, and we've only got the one shape selected. Well, all we need is a selection here, so I'm just going to go ahead and drag this selection right to the name of my working document. If you remember, let's drag that down. So we're going to drag it up here into our working file and just release it, and there is my shape. So I'm just going to scale this selection up. I'm going to go grab the select, or go into the select menu and go here to transform selection, and let's just scale this up. I'm going to press enter. I'm going to go ahead and create a new blank layer, and I'm just going to press Option Delete. Since white is set as my foreground color, it's going to press Option Delete, and now it fills it in there. So now we've got that shape on my layer. I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to press Command or Control T to bring up the free transform, and I'm just going to hold down the Shift key and rotate this around, and let's just kind of push this, or let's scale it down a little bit more and kind of put that right about here. Just so it's kind of going off screen there. I'm going to go ahead and create a duplicate of that layer. And let's go into the Edit menu and go to Transform, Rotate 180 degrees so it kind of turns it around. I'm just going to offset it here a little bit and give it a little bit of interest. This almost got like a bottom swirly going up here. And that's a cool thing about these abstract swirly shapes is that you can pretty much put them in any configuration and they're going to look pretty good. You remember what we did with the background pattern earlier. It looked pretty cool. So I'm going to go ahead and merge these two layers together. I'm going to press Command or Control E, and now it's all combined into one layer. And let's do what we did a while ago by applying that layer style to get that glow effect. So go into the Layer Effects or Layer Styles menu here. We're going to choose Outer Glow. And certainly go in here and choose any color. I'm going to start off with blue because it always really looks good. Well, let's go in kind of a more of a purplish blue. And you can see it's already applied. Let's go ahead and take that blend mode and set it to hard light, opacity to 100%, and let's increase the size. And you'll notice it's starting to look pretty cool. Got a neat thing happening there. So click OK, and that looks pretty good. Well, let's enhance it a little bit more by adding some more stuff. Well, I'm going to go ahead and add a new blank layer. And again, we're going to copy that layer style right to this new layer, and we're going to hold down the Option key or Alt key, click that effects icon, and drag it to the new layer. And I could easily apply all these things I'm doing on one layer. I just like to keep them all separated on one layer in case I apply an element, I don't necessarily like it. Even if later on I'm working on a document, I realize I don't like it. It's just as easy as throwing away the layer than having to restart the graphic all over. So on this blank layer, I'm going to grab that gradient tool, and again, using white as the foreground color, using the foreground to transparent gradient, and this time we're going to use the radial gradient, which is the second icon right here. And right off view here, right outside the image boundaries, we're just going to start the gradient and just drag out just a little ways. And that's just going to give me an enhanced glow, like there's a real light source, and you can just kind of move it around if you don't like it in there. And let's actually put it behind that shape. So it has more of an intense glow coming from back there. And again, if I don't like it, if I look at it and I say, well, it looks better without it, I can always throw it away. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. And let's again create a new blank layer and copy that layer style into there. Just Option dragging that layer style onto there. And we're going to grab a custom brush this time. But this time we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to go into the layer or the brush menu here and go into the flyout menu, and we're going to load square brushes. And we'll go ahead and append it to the existing list. It should show up all at the bottom. There they are. And let's get a relatively small one. I'll give about an 8. Actually, a little bit bigger than that. Let's get a 10. And let's go in here and modify the behavior of this brush. Let's open up the brush options. And go ahead and go over here and activate the shape dynamics, and let's modify the size jitter. I'm going to go ahead and leave pen pressure on. We're going to scatter this like crazy. Let's go into both axes and really kind of push these in all weird directions here. And I'm going to increase the spacing a little bit. Let's go into the spacing, push that out a little bit. Back inside the shape dynamics, I'm going to modify the angle and roundness jitters, almost like they look like 3D squares floating in space. So if we paint on our image here, you can see what we're getting. It's something pretty cool. So let's go in here and just kind of randomly put in some little scatter trails of little fragments here, just enhancing and adding to the effect here. Now again, this is another reason why I like to have these effects on their own layers. This is a smaller particle, so the really big or blown out effect we've got on these other shapes that looks really good doesn't look all that prominent on these smaller shapes. So we need to go in here and just modify it. In this case, we could just go in here into the, if we control or right click right on that effects icon, we could go down here to scale effects, and then simply use the slider and just drop these down, and that glow will start to intensify a little bit more on those shapes. Notice the difference. Could probably even drop it a little bit more. Let's go to 15. So that effect is a lot more prominent on that shape. Let's take it down beneath that shape layer, and we're getting something pretty interesting there. So let's kind of put a few scattered areas over here. All kinds of possibilities. So we've got the light coming out there and everything looks cool. Well, I want this light to be reflecting on her face. I want it to have some kind of reaction on her face here. Well, the way I'm going to do that is we're going to go ahead and create a new blank layer right above that photograph. And we're going to go ahead and press Shift-Delete, and it's going to fill. We're going to use the 50% gray like we've been doing, and we're going to click OK, and it fills that layer in. Then we're going to go and to the filter menu and choose Render Lighting Effects. And here's where you can actually set a specific light source just by grabbing this, or you can reposition the light altogether and change the rotation and the intensity. So what we want to do is pretty much match where the light is coming from already, which is off to the side like we've got there. And we'll just kind of position that off there. We'll kind of close it in a little bit so it's a little bit more focused light, almost right to the edge of the document top and bottom there. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change the color of this light right inside here. We're going to go in here and click on that little color swatch and pretty much try and get a close match to the color we've been using. And we'll click OK, and we're getting that purple. It's actually not that purple. Let's get it more of a blue there. And we'll increase the intensity, and you see what's going on there is it's getting a really cool light effect there. So let's click OK, and there's our light coming through there. I'm going to change the blend mode of this, and it's really going to depend on your image how this is going to blend. So let's try some different ones and see what we get. We'll try overlay. Doesn't look all that great. Soft light doesn't really do anything. Hard light is good. It's close. You could probably drop the opacity a little bit, and we're getting a tinge of that light coming in here on her face, and it looks pretty good. So let's go with that for now. Or let's actually take it to about 85. So it gives me a little bit of a hint. Now I want to hide this side of her face over here. I don't necessarily want to see all the detail on the side of her hair here, so let's create a new blank layer above that one. Again, keeping elements on their own layer. And using that gradient tool, we're going to use the black for the foreground color, foreground to transparent, and let's just draw a path right inside here. Again, we need to make sure we're using the linear gradient, of course. And we're going to draw that gradient. Holding down my Shift key, I'm just going to drag from left to right, just a little ways, and it will hide that area of her face a little bit more. And so we're getting that lighting effect. If I want to bring out her face just a little bit more in brightness, let's just select that original photo layer, go into the adjustment layer panel, and let's do the levels. And let's just brighten her face up a little bit there. Not too much. We don't want to blow out too many highlights there. And I think that looks pretty good. Now, there's another way of applying that lighting effects filter. I mean, at this point we could be pretty much done. We could certainly go in here and add a whole bunch of different effects, but there's another way of doing this. You notice we applied the color inside the lighting effects. There's another way of going about it that I wanted to show you real quick too. Let me go ahead and throw this one away. And let's do the same thing we did. I'm going to create a new blank layer, Shift Delete, 50% gray, and we're going to apply that lighting effect, but we're going to take this back to white. Because, and one of the reasons I like to do this is that it gives me a great deal of control after the fact, in that I can use the blends to blend it in a little bit better and still have control over the lighting. So I'm going to leave the lighting, everything is set the way it was. All we've really done is change the color back to white. Let's kind of position this in so it's a little bit brighter there. So I'm going to click OK. There's my lighting effect. And we're going to change the blend mode again to hard light, and you'll see what we get. We get kind of that light interacting in there. But here's the cool thing. I'm going to press Command or Control U to bring up the hue saturation. Now we can modify the color of that lighting any way we want. And because of the way it's blending, it's going to make it a little bit more. So we need to go into the blue area, increase that saturation quite a bit. Even draw down the lightness if we want. Doesn't really matter, but we have a greater degree of control of how that lighting is being affected there. So that looks a little bit more intense, a little bit better, I think. You can even, if it looks a little intense on the edges there, we'll just grab the free transform and just kind of nudge it off view there. And there we get a little bit more better lighting right on our face. So it's not just creating the lighting effect on the image, but applying that lighting effects filter and being able to modify the color will make it look like this light source is actually reflecting on the side of our face there. So another cool way of using the layer styles and lighting effects to enhance your images by adding some interesting design elements, and not just adding shapes, but giving them life by adding light and making them a little bit more dramatic. So there's lighting effects. Just try different things yourself, have fun with it, and we'll see you on the next lesson.